So good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's joined us today, and welcome to our second edition of the 2023 webinar series hosted by Titan HST. My name is Todd DeVoe, and I am the host of Titan HST's Business Continuity Today podcast. I'm also the Director of Emergency Management, and I'll be the moderator for our conversation today. And we're super excited about this whole series, like I've said. And today's program, I'm excited because it's really bringing things back from my hometown of where I grew up, the state of New York, and the World Trade Center and the memorial of the 9/11 memorial. The National September 11th Memorial and Museum is the official title of the organization. And I'm really excited to have Zeb here with me as well. And so just in case you haven't been able to see the other webinars, you can check out our YouTube channel, Titan HST YouTube channel. I'll throw the link in the chat as well. And you can go check out our other webinars as well. But we're here to talk to Zeb. So I really want to get back into Zeb's background. He's the Director of Security Systems and Operations for the National September 11th Memorial Museum. And we take an in-depth look at the strategies and best practices and possible threats. And Zeb he has a great background. Just talking to him today, and the idea of growing up, in Michigan and Pittsburgh, and then moving down to the islands, and then making his way to New York. What an adventure that you've lived, Zeb. It's exciting, and the fact that you have made your way there and you're now in this position and doing some great work. I'm excited to have you with your experience in here. And not just talking about your security technology and risk assessment and your being able to harden facilities, which is critical, but it's also your ability to work with teams and really make things happen. And when you start thinking about managing large scale events, it's more than just processes. It's more than just hardening process. It's really working with your team. So I think that's great. So Zeb, what really brought you to this line of work?
So, as you know, I'm also a U.S. Army veteran. So I really believe in giving back to the community and giving back to the people. And I think a big part of that is that the excitement of creating technologies and sustainable solutions when it comes to security and whatever it may be. And, I just think like we're all participants in this life, and we should do our best to give back as much as possible in a positive way. So we're excited, and I'm very excited.
Yes, and thank you for your service as a veteran to veteran. It's always great to talk to people who can speak the same language, for sure. So taking a look at what you're doing, what type of training and protocols do you implement for your team to enhance that security and safety at the Memorial and Museum?
Well, I think it's anywhere, and I think it starts with proactive thinking. It comes with planning. It comes with partnerships. A lot of interagency collaborations. And relationships are one of the hugest factor when it comes to managing a large scale event. It's understanding the resources around you, understanding the people that you have around you, and things in that nature. Setting fail safes and things in that nature, so that you have the ability to, in our line of work, we hope for the best, plan for the worst, and that's just the nature of life that we live in. So a big factor of that is to have the ability to set, multi-level layers of securities and redundancies in place. So, I truly believe in tertiary redundancies. It's not just if 1 and 2 goes down, you have to think about 3. So, we have probably the greatest team in the world that I work with, and the surrounding campus and everybody and all the agencies. We're all united and on the same page, and we're very excited to continue to push the envelopes of technology and keep people safe and secure. And that's what we signed up for. And a lot of former law enforcement, a lot of former FDNY and military, and a lot of people that were there from day one when everything transpired on September 11th. So there's a lot of passion involved in our work. So we take our work very seriously and we're very passionate about it. And, that's why we're such a good team and a good fit at the World Trade Center.
As we're talking about what you all do at the World Trade Center and the events that you plan for, I want the people that are listening today to reflect back on what events that you are working on at your home, right? So whether it's that 5K fundraiser, the Christmas parade, whatever event that you're having in your city, you really need to take these lessons, because we're seeing across the world where people are using these events in small towns and things occur. And so we can't just think that these are planning events for large cities like New York or Los Angeles. It's really every place where you're at doing community events. You need to plan for these. And so some of the events independent from the memorial and the museum, such as like the New York City Marathon or protests, that occur, or TV and movie shoots. What impact does that have on the memorial and museum for security, and how do you manage those outside events?
Well, that's a great question. So, in New York City, it's a very populated location, and we deal with protests all the time. We deal with marathons, parades, everything in that nature. So one of the big factors is intelligence. Getting pre-intelligence, updated intelligence, in-the-minute intelligence of what's going around in our surroundings. And it's also using those technologies in place that you have around, whether you're using CCTV or whatever it may be, to understand what's going on your perimeter and everything in that nature. So, it's not just understanding that, we have 12 acres that we have to cover or 16 acres we have to cover. It's understanding what's beyond that point, north, south, east, and west, to be able to mitigate anything, so you can see anything that's approaching coming into you and get good intelligence, understand like if there's potential protests in the upcoming days, as to, do I need to provide more staffing? Do I need to, request barriers or law enforcement or things in that nature, and, like I said, a big part of this job is the relationships you build, because those relationships, you'll always need them on both sides. And, it helps that, we're very united in that factor.
So with the fact that your footprint spans acres, right? And to put that in perspective, in New York City, I mean, that's a large piece of property that you are securing. What are some of the things that your team needs to consider when securing such a large perimeter?
I think one of the big things is, wherever you're securing, is that there's multiple buildings, there's multiple operating centers and everything in that nature, and you guys, everybody has to have the ability to communicate with each other, to understand weaknesses, strengths, improvements that may be needed, and things in that nature. So it's one of those, we're very fortunate that, there's a lot of great minds that came together for the planning of, the security perimeter, the infrastructure, the layouts, everything like that, So, we're very fortunate that a lot of people came together and worked out for the best possible solutions that we have, and really it comes down to the ability for everyone to understand their parts and roles in the event of an actual emergency, understand that, if we're not able to go north, who is our partners in the south, the east, and the west that we can rely on, and those are big aspects of, how we prepare and we sustain.
Everybody, if anybody has a question for Zeb, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A. We'd be happy to, at the end, we'll pull some of those questions out. I know you'll have a lot of questions when it comes to securing events, especially when you think about the large scale that you're doing as far as the size goes. And to put that in perspective, my town where I live, we have an 8K. I don't know why it's an 8K, but that's what it is. And they have to keep those people that are running in that race safe and making sure vehicles don't come around. And so there's a whole planning process that goes behind that as well, and security in that place and that large perimeter is critical. So what kind of resources are you using to to ensure that communication's being held across that perimeter, everybody's on the same page, and what kind of planning process do you put into that?
Well, part of it is that, we have the ability to communicate with each other, and, it's understanding our abilities to, whether we're using emergency messaging or whatever it may be to communicate, and it's just there's centralized locations of information that's pushed out, so, we do have to, it's checking in, understanding what's going on, looking at not just the day, but the next couple of days in advance to understand the needs and security for the site, how, whether it's Tower 1 or Tower 2, 3, and then, which areas could be impacted by this, things in that nature. So, that's kind of like just how we look at it and we move forward with it.
So we just had the Super Bowl, was it last week, I guess? And, so thinking about events like that, we had it here in Los Angeles, year before, with the Olympics are coming, we have those type of events that are coming across. And so it's going to impact everybody in the community when these events like that happen. If you happen to be fortunate to live in a World Series, area, or possibly, the other playoff games, we know that when these events occur, it spills over onto the street. What kind of advice could you give to organizations, to cities that are planning for these type of events that may have spillover, whether good or bad, right? Win or lose, it seems to be everybody wants to take to the streets to either celebrate or cry. What kind of advice would you give to them to plan for an event like that?
Well, I think one of the big things is when it comes to planning for, large scale events or whatever in events, is the ability to, set your criteria in advance. So a big part of that is the training, right? So it's your staff understanding what's going on. You have to have a plan in place. You have, and this is also too, it's you want to make sure that, you're running your drills or whatever you need to do, and, things in that nature, so that people understand, like, like you said, good or bad, how to adapt to these situations, expectations. And then it's also using lessons learned, right? So, it's great to go back in the archives of, where was this event last, taken, and things in that nature. And then how, what did they see during these events? Is there improves? It's just like a quick AAR of understanding what was previously in place in other places. And it's also, like I said, the hugest piece is communication. A lot of the times when it comes to planning events and things of that nature, all it takes is someone to pick up the phone and give a simple phone call to whoever already experienced these events. And most of the time, you're gonna receive somebody on the other line that's more than willing to help you and help you understand what they went through and their pros and cons of things in that nature. So,
Yeah, that's the best part about, I think, this profession, is that everybody's so collaborative when it comes to, trying to keep everybody safe, and no one really keeps anything secret, right? When you are going through the planning process, right? And we talked about this a bunch of times, the idea that it's not always the plan that's important, but it's the process that's important. Who do you invite to the table, and then how do you disseminate that information to your team?
well, I think the big thing is if anybody's going to be part of that plan, they should be invited to the table. Nobody, in our world, nobody wants to wait for a surprise to happen and then react to it. So a big part of that is the relationships and the communication, and then just having one centralized person or location where this information comes out. So instead of you having 3 SOCs send out multiple information that could potentially be conflicting, you have one source of information where everything comes through, it's funneled down, it's reviewed, it's approved. And that's the big part of it is in order for the success of your event.
So when you're doing the planning process, how do you anticipate or prepare for those different possible threats? Like what do you use for your threat analysis, and how does it look?
Well, I think one of the big things is you do a lot of walkthroughs, you do drills things in that nature. And a lot of this can relate to your business continuity plan and whatever it may be, for you to understand, what do you do with this? Do you have a QRF, which is, if you're not in the military, it's a quick reaction force or something in that nature. You have your response teams, and it's understanding your needs for the event. And, I truly do believe that it's better to over plan than under plan. It's better to have more resources than you need resources. So, it's a big part of that. And it's everybody understanding their roles and responsibilities, whether it's a medical emergency or power outage or whatever it is, and a big part of that is not just, figuring out a plan for today for that event. This is, proactive learning. This is training within your staff. And this is years in the work, and, it's immersion training for your staff, because one of the big parts is in these huge events, you got to think the security population and the law enforcement population is a smaller number compared to the general public or whoever's attending this, so part of that process, they say it very well, see something, say something. So a big part of that is, everybody plays their role in keeping the site safe and secure. It's easier to double check, a possible threat than, somebody's like, oh, that didn't seem like anything, so we rather do our due diligence and, not find credibility into something versus, nobody's saying anything about, a possible threat. So, it takes years and works and makings, and, it's a process, and you have to stand by that process. You have to update your protocols and procedures. And, a big part of it, as we say, train as you fight. So, you have to continually take this approach to be proactive, to continue to want to do this training. Yes, you might not have a big event every single year, but, if you have something in your toolbox, when it's time to use it, you'll be ready.
So let's talk about, your biggest event. I'm guessing, maybe I'm stepping out of bounds here on that one. It would be the 9/11 Remembrance Day, right? On 9/11. So you have the reading of the names in that process, and I know that's full of dignitaries, and in some cases the presidents show up. Now it's election year coming up, so small towns may have that type of event happening for them. What do you do? What's the process for planning for something like that has a significant media following and or potential if something bad happened? How do you plan for that?
Like I said earlier, a big part of this is all of the interagency collaboration. So we all play our roles and parts in the success of the commemoration, and it goes from top bottom in our organization, and it goes as far as the entire World Trade Center campus, that everybody, plays their roles and have their responsibilities when it comes to whether it's family members, dignitaries, whatever it may be, press, so everybody, has their own roles and responsibilities, and, everybody knows what to do when, in the event of an emergency or whatever it may be. So, we're very excited that we have a well-trained staff in-house, and we're also, we're very excited for the whole fact that, we have the ability to have such good partnerships with all of these agencies, and we all work together, at such unison when it comes to our commemorations, so, it's been quite an experience, and it's been quite an honor to, be part of these commemorations.
So when you have guests, not just the honorees or the dignitaries, when you have guests and attending events, what do you do to communicate with your guests and to improve safety and efficiency of messaging?
Part of it too, there's a lot of different elements, there's a lot of great technology out there, that you can use to communicate with guests and staff members. And, you always have like your traditional PA systems in-house, exterior, whatever it may be, and, one of the big parts too is, the technology has advanced so much is that we now have the ability to communicate via text message through applications now with our guests for specific events or whatever it may be, So, everybody is in touch with what's going on in their environment and surroundings, and with some of these technologies, it easily helps you isolate incidents and things of that nature. So, the technology is definitely improving, and, we all know that, it's going to continue to enhance and grow. And a big part of that is for us to continue to take this proactive approach to continue to find different measures and security layers in order to keep our site safe and secure.
Every event has its challenges, right? I would love to have worked at an event that goes 100% smooth. What do you do to mitigate those challenges? I mean, like, and I guess for lack of a better term, is like, you have especially when you have a large event, you want to keep it from, as Disney calls it, off stage. How do you keep those events off stage and where people don't even, realize something's going sideways?
Well, a big part of that is our training. So a big part of that is, you have this entire curriculum that you set for your security staff and everybody else that's involved. And, the best possible solution when it comes to, responding to incidents is deflection as well. So we want to make sure that, we're not, you don't want to get rowdy with people and everything in that nature. You want to be able to have a generalized conversation, and a big part of that is the humanization factor, is for us to treat everybody equal and respectfully. We're not always going to see eye to eye, but we can always be respectful to each other, and that goes a long way in mitigating incidents and situations. You could be mad at me, Todd, and, we could just have a good conversation. And as we're talking, I'm just walking with you, so that's part of the process too. It's, the escalation process of incidents sometimes is not really necessary. It's just, being able to listen to the person that has the issue, or, that doesn't see eye to eye.
Yeah, I think that if we approach it from the human dignity point, a lot of times that will de-escalate a lot of the issues. And, so that's a really great answer. Thank you. A question came in. It says, what are the top 3 to 5 things that should be considered when managing crowd control or unexpected crisis after it happens?
Well, I think that's a great question. So I think one of the things is understanding if you had any drills or tabletops in place that you could potentially reference from, but at the same time too, everything happens in a split second when it comes to security, and it's understanding, that's a big part of when I say like the redundancy, is to make sure that, whether, you think like, you might have an overcrowding situation or a crowd control issue, is, you ask yourself, did I pick up that phone and call my partners to just put them on notice to say, hey, if I need you for this, can you come help me? Do you have extra barriers? Do we have additional resources that we can deploy in the matter of minutes, just in the event that, something escalates? So, I kind of look at things in that perspective, that, the best approach to anything you're doing with planning is to continue to take these proactive, and you got to think outside the box. You got to think, not all the good will come from it potentially, but, if something bad happened, what could we do? How could we achieve success in a bad moment? And that's a big part of the learning process is to, and I stress it big enough, is redundancy in everything that you do. And, it helps, it goes a long way.
When you're planning for that large event, and you're doing your intel type stuff, what are you looking for in case of, like, say, potential protests, or if you have an event where, not necessarily maybe at the 9/11 memorial, but there's protests potentially coming against what you're doing. What do you do to plan for those, and how do you mitigate that type of an event, I guess?
I think a big part of it is that you want to make sure that you have the capabilities to respond to, a protest or whatever it may be, and to understand, like I said, your resources. But at the same time too, you want to make sure that, you have training in-house, and, you want to have a playbook to understand like these elements of, what if this happens? What if that happens? And a big part of this, is it comes down to years of experience. It comes down to, redundancy. And, I think I said redundancy like 200 times already, but that's a big part of it, and it's also, everybody channeling their business continuity plan and understanding the roles and responsibilities, when it comes to any kind of crisis. And then, the beauty about your business continuity plans, like sometimes issues arise that you may have never jotted down on this, right? But then that gives you the opportunity of growth. That gives you the opportunity to find different solutions and things in that nature. So, a big part of it too is like when you look at a crisis or a conflict, also look at it as the ability to be challenged, the ability to learn something new, and that's the only way we continue to get better and stronger, is if we take the good and bad together.
So speaking about good and bad, here's another question that came in, and so Zeb made a good comment about respect for differing viewpoints. How do you handle the critique from the public during large events, whether it's deserved or undeserved? For example, say parking and traffic congestion is always a grumbling topic among people attending. Oh yeah, it's part of the reason why I hate going places nowadays is traffic. But how do when it's not even your fault, right? Traffic's not your fault, but they come to your event, they're already amped up about traffic. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think one of the beauties of our site is, there's not too many places to park. So, highly encourage everybody to catch the subway or a taxi. But, I think a big part of, dealing with conflicts with people and parking, whatever it may be, is, you just have to have the ability to listen and talk to people, so, that's a big part of it. So, we really don't have like, parking issues or whatever it may be. We're a very unique site compared to most, but, I think like if your event deals with parking, like you have to look at the small things that can help people, right? For instance, like find out the closest garage that's close by and find out if your event can provide them some kind of discount. It's a small little things that goes a long way, with people, so you want to make sure that, if you can check all those extra boxes for people. And, it's also sending out little simple disclaimers like, hey, we're going to have a great event today, but, give yourself ample time to find parking or whatever, because it's limited, and, it's just a big part of it too is awareness. Like, would you like me to say, hey, come meet me here, and then it takes you 2 hours to get here because you're stuck in traffic? It would be more better if I told you that, parking would take some time. That way, at least your mindset's already anticipating it, and a big part of it is just communication and transparency.
Yeah, kind of on that same topic, I know it's a little bit off topic what we're talking about, but for as far as moving people. And I've gone to a few events that were in downtown Los Angeles from where I live, and they have like offsite parking, like at malls, where they have express buses that will take you to the event. And I find that, I mean, I know some people are like, oh, I want to have my car there in case of whatever, but I really find that very relaxing, I guess, for lack of a better term, because I know I don't have to deal with the traffic and deal with finding parking, and then to drop you off right at the front of the event, and you walk in and you get back on the bus at the end of the day and you get to your car. So I those are great ideas, and working with mass transit, that makes sense. That's a really good point there, Zeb. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
What are, just to kind of throw a few out, what are some of the challenges that you have faced in the past that you could share, and that was like lessons learned that somebody else can implement into their plan?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be challenges, and I think one of the big things is, what we do is, doesn't matter the issue or event that happens is, a big part of it is you always do your after action report. And, you weigh the pros and cons and then see what you can improve on, what you can grow on, and that's a big thing. And it's being fully honest with yourself is, hey, did we do 100% in this aspect or this aspect, and if you didn't, it's just, this is the perfect time to have the ability to grow and have the ability to improve whatever it may be, with any kind of issue or anything that may arise on the site, whether it could be, poor customer service or, lack of cameras in a location or whatever it may be, and, these incidents give you the opportunity to continue to enhance and grow your site and systems and your personnel. So, you just have to look at all of these things as, learning opportunities. I can't really get into, details in regards to any of them, but, we definitely take any kind of incident to the point where we have the ability to learn from it, to grow from it. So for instance, like, let's say you have a event and, a couple of people tripped down in one location, right? When you do your report, you got to, and you start looking at all these things, you realize that, there's an indentation or something in the ground there, and it's the attention to the small things as well, and it's understanding that, well, maybe we should not use this area in the future, or we should have this repaired or whatever it may be, So I look at things in that perspective. In order to continue to grow and enhance, you have to have the ability to take constructive criticism and provide constructive criticism to yourself as well.
When I was in the Navy, I worked the air show as a corpsman, and I worked the medic, and I worked the air show up at Miramar. And the odd thing is, we had for safety purposes, they put these speed bumps, if you will, over wires, right? Like the cabling and stuff. Well, it's an air show, and people walk around with their head looking up at the airplanes, and not everybody, a lot of people, more than 10, tripped over the speed bump because they were like, and so, yeah, it's like something like that. You think you're doing, okay, this is for safety purposes. I don't want people tripping over the wires, but because of the event, they're tripping over the speed bump. So sometimes you have to sit back and review things that you think you're doing right that may have actually caused other issues. So I always found that.
And who knows, maybe in the future they decided to put underground tracks, to support the wiring infrastructure. So, like you said, it's a small things, and it's weighing those opportunities for growth. When
you start looking at events, and I'm going to ask this in two different ways, and very similar question, but two different ways. We start looking at events from the outside. So you look at the Super Bowl or World Series or something like that with your professional knowledge. How do you measure, like when you watch it, you go, okay, that was a good event from the outside?
Well, from the outside, we live in a world filled with social media. So, if an event was successful or not, majority of the time, social media will state that case as well. And it's on, you have to set your KPIs, before these events, to understand what your key performance indicators are, and understanding, maybe the goal was 0 injuries or whatever it is, and, you look for those elements, you look for all of that, to understand like how successful it was, so like from the security standpoint, our success would be different from someone in finance or someone in marketing, so it's just one of those, like everybody has their own KPIs and everybody has their visions of a successful event, from a security standpoint, a big, life safety is the biggest factor, so you want to make sure that, just everybody came to this event to pay their respects or have a great time. And you also want them to go home and cherish those memories with each other and say, hey, this was such a great experience. I would love to tell my friends and families and for us to experience this another time. So, we look at it from a security standpoint, life safety is number one, and, then you look at potential, no property damage or whatever it may be. And, all of these elements involved, so a big part of that for us are those elements in place when it comes to that, especially from the security scope.
So then, so basically, when you're looking in on your own events, then you're setting up those KPIs beforehand, so you have something to measure the event against. So with that, could you share like maybe, like an example of something that you use to measure your event?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a big part of that is, you look at the estimation of like how many people will come to an event, right? Whether, let's say you have 20,000 people come into an event, right? So if you don't have any injuries or anything in that nature, you reach that success milestone already, right?
Right.
But then, like, let's say somebody gets hurt, right? What kind of injury was it? Was it an injury? Was it an illness? Was there underlying conditions for this person or whatever? Was it the fault of the property or, things in that nature? So you kind of look at these things. And then it's also too, it's how does that injury or illness impact the event as well? So, if I'm standing up there and I watched, whoever, for instance, let's say they had an underlying cardiac issue and they go into cardiac arrest, how does that impact the people around them? Does that take away from the experience? And then it's also to the response time. How was our response time to these incidents? Did we have adequate resources? Did we have the best possible resources on hand to mitigate these as fast as possible? Nobody wants to go to an event or anything like that, and then somebody falls down and then it takes 20, 30 minutes for somebody to respond to it. So, and I think a big part of that too, it's event training and staff training, right? So, we've been very fortunate, like I told you, before, is that we have this robust curriculum that we offer our in-house staff. And, we have the best trained security officers in the world. And I can honestly say that, and we put additional criteria on top of that for them to have the ability to respond to certain cases and things in that nature, and, we have the resources on site within our security team, whether we're EMTs or whatever it is, so we do have the ability to create levels of redundancy until higher care is provided, and that goes a long way. Yeah. Nobody, it could be a great event, but, they might just remember that this person was laying on the floor for 25 minutes before response. So it's understanding all of those small little details and elements in place and, to make sure that, the whole experience is a memorable experience in a positive way for everyone.
So prior to coming to the National September 11th Memorial Museum, what are some of the largest events that you worked prior? And did you take any of those lessons learned from that to your current position?
Well, I did a couple events. I piggybacked on a couple of events with some great partners. I did the NBA All-Star Week when it was down in New York City, assisted with a little bit of access control and things in that nature. And then I also did the Super Bowl when it was in New Jersey, New York, and, you notice like a lot of the same trends and patterns. And, a big part of that is safety, security, access control. I was fortunate more that, when I did the access control, I was dealing with more of like the VIPs versus the actual event itself. So, like I said, the big part is communication, learning their security teams and details, the needs and things in that nature. So, it was, it's an exciting experience, and, it's a humbling too, that you do have the opportunity to work at these other large scale events and, help assist with your expertise and knowledge. And, a big part about the expertise and knowledge in our field is that we ourselves have to continue to grow, continue to evolve, and that's a big part of it. So, even at my stage, I truly believe that, continuing learning and education is a big part of combating new threats and, mitigating risk and everything like that, because, the challenges will always be different, but, if you have that hard work ethic, you will be okay.
I have a students, I teach as well, and I always try to give them direction, like how can they make their career go one way or the other. What kind of advice would you give right now to, say, somebody who wants to get into corporate security protection, kind of stuff that you're doing, and how to make a successful career out of it?
I think you have to be relentless. And I think a big part of that is your ability to be a sponge and soak up all of that knowledge and take on additional tasks and duties, and, surround yourself with some great mentors, great people that will help you evolve and grow, and I've been fortunate to have some great people around my corner. Like I said, I work with the best security team in the world, and, we have the ability to, we're more like family, so that's a big part of it too. And it's also, we have the ability to push each other, and we trust in each other's work. And, but, starting off in this business, it's tough, like you're coming right out of college or whatever, but I think one of the big parts is that, you have to be passionate about it. You have to be able to push down the doors that are closed in front of you. Don't take no for an answer, and that's a big part of it, is that, if you continue to work hard at your craft, people will eventually and see your craft and your abilities and your expertise, so you just have to keep working at it. You have to stay perseverant. You're going to have good and bad days. Everybody does, as you said, but you have to continue to strive for your passion, and a big part of that is love what you do, so find the passion and the things that you love and do it. You can do anything that you want to do, and the only person that can stop you is yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great message. Oh, one other question came up. How long is your planning process for your large events?
Sorry, I didn't hear you on that one.
How long? What's kind of lead? I guess I'll rephrase it. What's your lead time on planning for a large event?
It depends, so like, for example, as soon as one event finishes, we're planning for the next, right? So for example, you take our commemoration, right? We start planning for the next one the next day, and it's part of that. It's continuing to be proactive, and, you learn a lot of stuff every year from everything that you're doing, and you just have to have the ability to plan, reassess, implement, and those are big aspects of things. I don't think that there's never too long of a time to plan for something. It just gives you more time to fine tune it. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely. I thank you for that. Do you have any, we're getting here closer to the end, and I was curious, do you have any parting words that you'd like to give, any words of wisdom do you have any parting words that you'd like to give, or words of wisdom that you'd like to give to the people who are listening today?
Yeah, so, I think in the events industry, the security industry, a big part of that is, staying proactive, knocking on the doors of your neighbors, understanding your resources, and just having general conversations, and it's building those relationships with those agencies and partners and neighbors, that you may need to call on in the event of an emergency, or, you might need additional resources, and a huge part of that too, that we touched on earlier is, the humanization factor and being kind to everybody that you speak to, because, me and Todd, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but, you never know when you're going to cross paths with somebody ever again, so, I think we as all individuals, we have the ability to be respectful and cordial and polite to everybody. And that goes a long way. The last thing you need is, 2 years later down the road, you need an assistance, and it's somebody that you were being rude to for absolutely no reason because you were having a day. So, we look at things in those elements, but, I think in the security world, it's always an uphill battle. And, our approach is a proactive approach. And, we work with, I can't state enough, the greatest team in the world, Todd. And, we have great partners like, Todd and his team. And, it's exciting. It's exciting. And, we look forward to the continued growth and evolution of, not just our site, but security in general, period. And, assisting others in any which way possible, so, there's a lot of great technologies out there. There's a lot of great companies out there that provide great services. You just have to find them, don't limit yourself to, one or two. We take pride in looking into big businesses, small businesses, everything like that, and it all comes down to what technologies and what services fit your structure, your environment, but with that said, I am very humbled and thankful to have the opportunity to have this chat today with you, Todd. And, I look forward to our continued conversations with you offline. And of course, happy to connect with anybody via LinkedIn, if you guys have any further questions and things of that nature, where, I truly do believe on giving back to the people. And, it's exciting.
Zeb, I really appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you. And as always, everybody, thank you for spending time with us today. Again, if you need more information, you can always find us at titanhst.com. Follow us there on YouTube as well. And we'll, in the show notes on YouTube, you can find Zeb's contact information to reach out to him if you have any other questions. And again, thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you on the next one.